Very beginning that this is not considered a debate, and we hope you treat it as such. This is a panel interview, and so we would also appreciate it if no one says anything negative about the other candidates. This isn't a debate, and we don't think it's appropriate here. In fact, it'll count against you for your vote if you do. And if anything negative is said, we will also we have the discretion to give the attacked candidate some time to rebut or to reply. But we don't want to deal with those issues, so please be respectful to everybody. The format of this panel interview is that each candidate will be given a minute and a half to introduce themselves and say whatever they'd like to say. After which, the panelists will have up to 30 seconds to ask a question in the time allowed. And you will have up to 1 minute to answer. And we'd ask that when I say time, please, that you respect that. We're just trying to get through and be fair to everybody. Those rules. So we will start with Mr. Root. Mr. Root, would you like to make your opening statement, please?
Sure. My name is Michael Root.
Mr. Root, yourself.
Microphone.
My name is Michael Root. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm running for Department 14, District Court.
Hold the microphone closer, please. We're recording.
A little bit about my background. I've been living in Las Vegas since 1963. I graduated from Paradise Elementary School, which is now law school. I graduated from Valley High School, and I graduated from UNLV. I went to law school, Cal Western. I believe we went to the same law school.
I think so.
In 1982, I graduated cum laude from law school, and then I was honored to be accepted as a JAG in the Navy, where I did prosecution and defense cases. I did hundreds of criminal cases, jury trials. Second half, they put me in claims. I did federal tort claims against the United States. So that's where I started to learn about PI cases. And then I returned after 3 years, after an honorable discharge, I returned to the private practice of my father. And since then, I've been in private practice from 86 to 90. I was recommended by Judge George, who was then the bankruptcy judge, who's now the federal district judge, to be on the overflow federal defense panel cases, and so I took more federal defense cases. Ever since I went into private practice in 1986, I've done criminal, personal injury.
Time, sir. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Ms. Escobar.
My name is Adriana Escobar, and I am the judge, the presiding judge in Department 14 in the District Court. My family moved here in 1962, and I went to St. Viator and Bishop Gorman and UNLV. I went to California Western School of Law, but before that, I had 5 years as a certified substance abuse counselor, and I worked, it was an amazing experience. I've practiced as a prosecutor in both white-collar and other general criminal cases. I've also had my own law firm. I've been the consumer advocate for the state of Nevada. I've served and been appointed by Governor Quinn and Governor Sandoval to the Taxicab Authority as Chief Deputy Attorney General and the consumer's advocate for the state of Nevada. I'm the only woman, and I'm very proud that I had that position. It was very meaningful to me to represent the consumers. I have been on the district court I went through the 20-year vetting process that they go back, and I was appointed 2 years ago, almost, and I've been on the bench for about 18 months. So my background is criminal and civil, and also administrative law. So I've done a little bit of everything, and I really love what I do. Thank you.
You have 2 seconds to spare, so thank you. Okay, is there anybody specifically that would like to start this panel discussion? Doctor, would you like to start?
I don't have my questions yet.
Okay. Why don't we start with Ms. Gardner then?
Good afternoon. Judge Escobar, being only on the bench 18 months, you're strictly civil venue?
Yes, actually, when I applied for the position, it was Judge Mosley had just retired, and it was mostly criminal. And when I started, they had switched it to a civil department. But I'm able, with my background, to work in both areas. But it is also, it's civil right now.
So what is your calendar looking like? We had Judge earlier, and she was saying she had 1,300 cases. Is yours just as large, and are you in trial a lot?
It's just as large, and I actually inherited cases from 6 or 7 departments, so they were at different levels, so that's been quite an experience. We have had, I haven't been in trial as much as she has, but they've settled after they've started, and I've participated a great deal in the settlement conference. I think it's very important because I'm able to sit down with the parties and effectuate and help them as a member of their team, you know, settle a case that saves so much money and time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Mr. Root, I just wonder, you said you've been practicing law here in Las Vegas. How many years? I must have missed that.
Well,
If you could please put it in a format where it can be a timed question type of a deal.
Okay.
Would that be okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
I wondered why you would pick this department to run for.
Okay.
It was available, and the main thing is, nobody's asked me yet what's important to me. As a district judge, one has awesome powers as a district judge. There's 3 areas that I particularly care about, and they're all constitutional. The First Amendment, which is under attack now. The Second Amendment, which the Supreme Court just gave a favorable ruling a couple of years ago. And the Fourth Amendment, which is the right of the people to be free of unreasonable searches and seizures. All of these are under attack now, and the way a district judge can help or hurt the people they're supposed to represent is a lot of judges just go along with the prosecution, and they don't really consider the sanctity of the Constitution. And as a judge, if I'm lucky enough to be elected, I would.
Thank you very much. Ms. Mosley, you ready with your questions?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Judge Escobar, I'm going to ask a question that I asked the previous panel. Describe some changes that you would like to see made in the district court and the organic 3 parts, like in type, in regards to the opinions and the way the court operates and the types of cases that are considered. So describe some changes that you would like to see made in the district court and types of the cases considered in respects to the opinions and in the way the court operates.
Well, that's a very good question. I don't know if I can answer it in that amount of time, but I will try. I would prefer much more written opinions with respect to anything that's appealed from the Supreme Court, but it's taking a little bit longer because of the lack of an appeal court. But I think that that's very important because it sets precedents, and we need to follow the law. And I, too, very much respect and follow the Constitution every day. One thing that I would love to do, and I mean this sincerely, I've taken 3 days. I actually signed up before the election last time, after taking the bench. I think there are a lot of things that can be done generally for the specialty courts. And obviously, one of the courts, and I think is critical, is the Veterans Court. But there are also other courts that are in need of much help and more resources. And something else. Timely.
Thank
Okay.
you very much. Ms. Bosley, do you have a question for Mr. Root?
Hi, Mr. Root.
Hi.
What is your view of the role of a court in society?
Well, you really put your heart on it. One change, you asked about change. One change that I would make is, I hope everybody here goes up to walks through the judges' room. When I started practicing law as an attorney, I just walked through and I could see all the judges and everything like that. less security. Go around Christmas time. You'll see gifts from law firms that have a special meeting to budget, and you'll see cases of movies, you'll see flyers, you'll see food, you'll see candy. The first thing I would do if I were elected is I would make it known to the legal community that I don't accept gifts. And I'm not saying that judges do are corrupt, I'm saying it's inappropriate. And if someone gives you a case of your favorite scotch, one can't help but feeling grateful for that person. And I've seen it, so we're all realists here. I've been in practice now for a long time, almost 30 years. I've been what I call backdoored by attorneys that have greater influence with the judges. That's the first thing.
At the time, please. Just to review the format, this is a question and answer panel interview, and there is only 1 minute to respond to the questions. And so we would appreciate that you actually respond to the questions that are asked. This isn't a debate, and that would be very much appreciated. So, Ms. Babcock. Stop breaking things, Ms. Babcock.
What do you consider are your attributes that you bring forth as a judge? What do you bring to the table as a judge?
And Mr. Root, could you start with this one, please? Answering this question.
Well, I think three things are, I think three things are essential, and I'm not hardly kidding around. The first one is honesty. And when I mean honesty, I mean not accepting any presents or gifts from anyone. Secondly, I would look at all cases with two views. One, what are the facts? Two, what is the law? And I'll apply them accordingly. I wouldn't care who's in front of me. I wouldn't care who their attorney is. I wouldn't care who the party is, and I wouldn't care what the party believes. If the party before me believes in a political point of view different than mine, I couldn't care less. I'm not there to play, to do what a lot of judges have done, which is impose their opinions and personal opinions and biases on litigants and pick and choose what laws they want to follow. I'm not here for that. I'm here to do an honest job. The second one is integrity, impartiality, and I guess I've talked a little bit about that. And that's what I see as lacking in the judges. I mean, I'm an attorney in private practice.
That's been a minute. Thank you. Ms. Escobar, could you answer the question?
Yes, I sit on the bench every day, and it is really an honor. And there are certain things that are critical, and it is being fair and impartial, and understanding that every day when I have a calendar, no matter what jury trial I'm going to be in, every case is important. So everything needs to be reviewed, everything needs to be thoughtful. You need to really be fair and impartial, and you need to have almost a passion for it, and be able to work a lot of hours, lots of hours, and hours at home too. It's not an 8 to 5 job. It doesn't matter. It never has been as a lawyer, but you really have to give it a lot of thought and a lot of honesty, and really take your time to balance things and follow the law.
Thank you very much. Ms. Knight.
Okay, my question is for both candidates, and it's more so about how do you work on internal efficiency, and then what would you do to make sure your internal efficiency, as far as reviewing cases, how you review, working with your staff, what are you going to do, or what do you do that really keeps you efficient at coming into a calendar call or having hearings, whatever, trial, etc.?
Could you start with this?
Sure, I'm happy to. That's a very good question, because one of the most important things, aside from being fair and impartial, and with my last answer, is that the court has to move efficiently. Every case has to be given its due time, but I regularly meet with my staff. We bring the orders in. Sometimes they take a little bit longer because it's a very difficult issue, but everything needs to be organized and addressed as soon as possible. And because the litigants, everyone is waiting for their day in court and the decision. You know, their lives are sometimes at a halt economically, emotionally, and so we have different, it would take too long to go into it, but we have checks and balances in so that I'm getting my orders out, signing them efficiently, making sure that I'm studying with enough time and knowing what cases are coming up so that I can read and research and do everything that I need to do.
Thank you very much. Mr. Root?
Thank you. Well, the first thing I would do is what a lot of judges don't now is use the electronic systems available to us and email orders, proposed orders. Now I'm having to do with the old snail mail, the hard way, print out hard copy that goes and sits before the law clerk for 50 other cases. The second part of your question is, how do you improve the efficiency? It has to do with work. It has to do with, if I were a judge, the law clerk would just give me the background, but every single piece of paper that came to me, I would feel the need to review, particularly briefs, because the law clerk, most of them are kids in law school, they're not very experienced and they're not very knowledgeable, and so you have to watch them, and so there's no substitute for hard work for the judge, and this is where all the hours come in. You have to review everything. If you're going to write a decision, I would...
Time, please. That's 1 minute. Thank you very much. It goes very quickly, I know.
It does.
Ms. Danvers, please.
This question is for both candidates. What are the pros and cons of going to the bench as compared to practicing law?
Mr. Root, would you start with this one? Sure. We'll alternate who starts unless the panel asks specifically for someone to start. Please, Mr. Root.
Well, I have loved the practice of law for the last almost 30 years. I revel in it. I think I was born to it. I've never been a judge before, although I've represented thousands and thousands of people. So I couldn't really say, but it would basically be the same, because I think what most people want in a judge is someone that will work hard and give them fair shake in court. I hear time and time again clients say, well, I just show favoritism to this attorney or this client. Some clients are prominent, some clients are rich. And I wouldn't do that. As a matter of fact, I'd feel duty-bound not to do that. It doesn't matter to me at all who you are. And it's particularly important downtown, where political philosophy comes into effect in a lot of areas downtown. We have judges that used to be on the insurance commission.
Time, please. Thank you very much. Ms. Escobar.
Well, I've known I've wanted to be a lawyer since I was 12. The long story, so I can't go into it now. It's my passion. As a practicing lawyer and as a judge. The biggest difference that I view in this last almost 2 years as a judge on the bench is that when I was an attorney practicing on behalf of my client, I always understood the other side's case, and that's why I usually had very good outcomes, because I did my homework. But I was there to represent them. And on the bench, I have to be neutral. I have to be open to both sides. It's critical. And the day I can't do that, I don't think I should be there. And I will do that. That is something that's critical to me as a person, the way that I was raised and the person that I am. That's just the way it has to be.
Thank you very much. Ms. Green.
Hi. So I'm very driven by education. I think it's very important, and the two of you, even though you may or may not think you would pose as a great impact on our community, you really are, because we rely on your experience and just kind of understanding why a lot of the crimes are committed. So I think just based on the other judges, education has always been that core factor of why a lot of the things that are happening in this community are. But that said, what kind of advice can you give to our young people, or what did you experience growing up that motivated you to go down the road of getting that knowledge and power, educating themselves?
If we could start with Ms. Escobar this time.
I'm happy to. I was very fortunate because my parents, all of them, and my family members encouraged education. It was critical. And this isn't right on point, but it is, because as a judge, I am volunteering with the Boyd School of Law, and there's a program where it incorporates high school students and students at UNLV, and also law students. And I'm trying to, it's new to me because I just started, but as a judge, I'm trying to mentor them. And some of these students, especially the high school ones, are in families that they may never even meet a judge or be able to go see the courtroom or anything like that. And that's dealing with legal education, because that's what I am. But I think education is critical. And when they interview me in Spanish, since I can't really talk about anything except, very general things, I talk a lot about you have to stay in school. So, because I think I may as well take advantage of that situation. So it's critical.
Time.
What do I say to young people? I represent a lot of young people. What do I say to the gangbangers that I represent? I ask them, why do you do the things that you do? And I talk to them about, do you think you would like it if I did that to you, or somebody did that to you, if you ripped somebody off or you stabbed them, in your case? And they would say no, or I don't care. And they don't care. I talk to them about being honest. I talk to them about whatever comes around goes around, and the path you're going on is violent, and it's a dead end. And what do they believe in? Because if you talk to somebody about what they believe in, then you can quickly understand what they're all about. And most of the young people, sad to say, don't believe in anything. They don't have, well, there's plenty of role models around in our society, but they're not accented by our media, and I think that's really bad. We don't spotlight the young person who works hard.
And Ms. Carroll. Mr. Root, you'll be starting this next one.
This is to Judge Escobar. I know that you've been a drug counselor.
Yes.
And you've been sitting on the bench. So there have been many cases where in court orders and information haven't been really shared with family court and with district court, and especially in domestic violence cases where a weapon has been used, and vice versa. And the impact of this poor communication, how it has affected our local families and children. Could you please make a comment on these issues?
Okay. Since I've been on the bench, my caseload has been civil, so I haven't really had cases that touch upon that directly. But I think that as a former prosecutor and consumers advocate for the state, you have to be very fair to both sides. But I think the victims have a right, and the more information we have, the better suited we are to make decisions and to foster and place either the criminal defendant or the person that's having a problem or the civil litigator where they need to be. So more information is better as long as it's something that's allowed by law. But I think it's a good thing. I think it's better for the decision maker.
Counselor Root, I have a question for you. What has been your most successful case to date in the state of Nevada, and could you please give me 3 specific wins?
Okay, well, the cases I'm most proud of are not the cases where I made the most money. The first case I'm most proud of is a paramedic. I represented the paramedic in the paramedics union in Pahrump. It made the national papers. He was accused of the worst thing that you could do as a paramedic, not giving treatment to somebody in need. And they were ready, they had terminated him, and he came to me all hangdog, and his life was ruined. He was in his 50s. He had been a paramedic teacher for 20 years. And after a 2-day arbitration, where they flew down an arbitrator from Reno, I went through all the paramedic books, and I proved beyond any doubt that he acted in accordance with the paramedic books, and of course he was reinstated with back pay, and I represented that. This was in Pahrump, although the trial was in Vegas. He went from a hangdog kind of guy that maybe possibly could have committed suicide, no hope left, no career, no income.
Time to decide. Thank you very much. This is the last question because of time, so Mr. Brooks? Or would you like to pass to Dr. Dept?
I'll tell you this right now, and honest disclosure here, Judge Escobar is actually going to be presiding over my wedding in October. So because of that, I would like to go ahead and pass, and the final question will be with the good doctor.
Yes, and of course you won't.
And I will recuse myself from voting on this.
Thank you very much. So, Dr. Dept.
For both candidates, if you were giving sweeping powers to change and make some court reform, and you had 3 wishes, what would you change? How would you reform the court system?
Could we start with Mr. Root, please?
What would I change? No gifts to judges. That's the first thing I change. You smile, but we all know what's happening there. The second one is I don't think the courts fully use the electronic means available to them by getting information to the court, orders, stuff like that. The third thing is a little bit quicker trial guidelines on civil cases. You know, it shouldn't really take 3 to 5 years to have a civil trial. And I see a lot of people basically give up when that happens. I would like to see an appellate court. I know a couple of our Supreme Court justices, well, they're all overworked. I mean, they get thousands of cases a year, and there's only a couple of them. So an appellate court is really needed in the state. We're one of the last states that don't have it. And I think there will be
time with Ms. Escobar.
Okay. One is, even in my civil calendar right now, I see situations where I think people may have, and this is my background, I can identify that there are a lot of problems emotionally sometimes. Some have to do with substance abuse. They may have to do with post-traumatic stress syndrome, and a variety of things. And I know it's not a requirement for a judge, but I think it would be very good to have judges and more people in our courts to be able to identify that, because we could take care of other problems that way. And second, it sort of goes with the first, to have more resources when we do identify those certain types of cases, that we could better help people in a more constructive way. Because not everyone who's committed a crime should be in jail, or, you know, there are many ways to resolve problems, and I think we need more tools for that. And I also agree with Mr. Root in that I think that trials, it would be better to be able to...
That is time. Thank you very much.
Speed it up.
But we are finished with this
me.
panel.
Can we finish, or?
Well, we did finish with this panel. Thank you very much for being here. We very much appreciate it.